Welcome to the Cut Above podcast, where average isn't accepted and standards aren't negotiable. No shortcuts, no excuses, just real training, real coaching, and real progress. I'm your host, Cody Maynard, Director of Human Performance for a private security company, owner and operator of Have a Day Fitness, independent personal training company, and Show Up Fitness instructor. Episode 5 today. Why progress feels slower than it is. So this is something that you'll come across as a trainer, and you may even feel it in your own training at some point in time. You're doing all the right things. You're going to the gym. You're eating right. Your training is on point. You're working with a trainer, or you're working with someone online, and you come to this point of, I don't feel like I'm progressing in the way that I thought I would. Things aren't just they're not shaping up quite like they want them to be in the short term, right? And that's where the bulk of this is that short term gratification, or that short term hit of, I see it, I feel it, and it's working. All the while on the back end, there's progress that is being made day to day, week to week, session to session, and sometimes that just gets looked over because people miss progress because they only focus on the dramatic changes that they see or they feel. When it comes to the tracking of progress, which I've done an episode before on, what is trackable, what I track as a coach and as a trainer, and what I try to instill is like, oh, this is really big progress in my clients. But where I'm going to start is the small wins compounding over time. I have this saying that my clients hear me say it all the time, and I've said it on social media before, is take what is given and make the most. That means 1 rep, 2.5 pounds at a time, all the way to being able to raise your arm effectively over your head for the first time in months, whatever it may be. Those small incremental daily wins of, I got 1 more rep than last week. I added 2.5 pounds more than last week. I used to only be able to get to about here before I got pain, but now I can get all the way up to my ear with no pain. Those are all things that just like compound week to week, session to session, that sometimes can get overlooked for the grand scheme of things because the small wins aren't nearly as dramatic and as, quote, sexy as the larger and or the expected outcomes that are placed at the beginning of this journey. You have to allow the small wins to accumulate so that you can play out and eventually get to the larger, more dramatic expectations and goals that you have set out for yourself. Most people quit before the results are like outwardly noticeable. And I'm going to say this one again because it hits home so hard. Most people quit before the outward results are noticeable. You have to allow the small wins to play out and actually get there. Because if not, if you stop short because it's only been 3 weeks or it's been a month and you haven't lost or you haven't gained, you haven't done this, you don't feel this, you could be knocking on the doorstep and you're 1 session away from, you're 1 week away from, and not to just like create false hope and like that endless endeavor of false hope, but you never know when you consistently, and that's another big piece, you have to consistently compound the small wins. It can't just be, I'm going to do good this week, or I'm going to fall off for a week. I'm going to do good for 2 sessions this week, but then the third one I'm going to write it in and just coast by or say everything doesn't feel good and I'm not going to show up, or whatever it may be. And then that leads right into the goal setting and the expectation portion. And I've spoke on this quite often is I believe that the social media is a great thing, but it's also a very detrimental thing. It creates unrealistic expectations for the vast majority of people. Social media, you go on there and you see the guy or the girl that has ripped up abs and they're sweating and it looks like they don't ever miss and they don't ever do something that is off plan or wrong, when in reality there's probably a lot of factors on the back end that are leading them or have led them to getting to that physique or that look that you see. And they only show the positive. They only show the the when I look good, when the lighting is perfect, when I haven't, I haven't missed a meal, I haven't slept, I haven't done all this stuff. That normal people and majority of those influencers that you see, they're probably in their mid 20s to late to early 30s. They're single. They don't have kids. Responsibilities are probably minimal, if any, other than creating and posting. Sorry, parched a little bit. Let me take a sip of coffee here. So, getting back to it, it's setting the realistic expectation of what you're aiming for, right? Like losing weight is great. What kind of weight do we want to lose? Getting stronger is great. I love that goal. But what do we want to get stronger at? Feeling better is great. What hurts? What's a pain point? What's a limitation? Where can we work? Being able to have a realistic expectation of what it is that you're aiming to do, as opposed to coming in here and or working with a trainer and being this wide open canvas, which is great. But at some point in time, you have to be able to hone it in, and you have to say, okay, I'm 45. I've got two kids, and I'm, realistically, I'm probably not going to ever step on a bodybuilding stage. But what does realistic look like for that individual? That can look like in the course of 6 months, losing 4 to 10 pounds, dropping a size in their pants, doubling their pull-ups, doubling their push-ups, their bench press, their overhead push press, like being able to confidently and comfortably walk down the stairs, get up off of the floor without being in aches and pains. Things like that are that's what a realistic expectation could look like. Not saying I want to be 8% body fat and have a 10 pack of abs by summer, and that's a month and a half, 2 months away. That's, I say I can do a lot, but I'm not a magic worker. So setting real expectations and not being jaded by the unreal expectations of social media is a huge part of this. And then where I go, and like we've talked about in a previous episode, and like I've already kind of hit on here, striving for the performance improvement versus just the scale weight and what the scale says. If you are feeling better, out of pain, lifting more weight than you once thought was possible, an arbitrary number on the scale that is going to fluctuate, skew, and ultimately has no real merit inside of the gym or your training sessions, which one are you going to choose? Being tied to a number that on a scale that can fluctuate, sometimes from 1 to 10 pounds, an extreme example, means absolutely nothing when it comes to your daily performance, how you feel. Does your shoulder hurt? Does your knee hurt? Does your low back hurt? I've gotten 25 pounds stronger in the last month and a half on a bench press or a lat pull down, or I've, you know, the list goes on and on. The sleep, nutrition, how is your sex life? Is all of that improved? Then that right there is a more than enough performance improvements that if the scale stays the same or even goes up, I'm jumping at the rooftop because of the amount of progress on the back end that probably is getting underlooked and undervalued, or overlooked and undervalued, excuse me, is you can't hide that. And that is something that I try to instill time and time and week and day again, is let's look at the key data points of the day, of how is your day been benefited by consistently and constantly striving for a larger goal. But the small goals are the ones that you're going to feel, and that's where I get frustrated, because it's not, and I'm not saying that you can't have a large ultimate goal, because I do for myself too. I do the same thing, but I also have to, and sorry, that was a truck outside was distracting. I also am aware enough to realize that 2.5 pounds more than last week, or 1 or 2 reps more than last week, I am in a stronger, I am in a better position than I once was, because it's not a weight number on the scale that drives me every day. Yes, a look in the mirror, a physique aesthetic look has some sort of play into that, but I know mentally, if I am training my face off, progressing in the gym, eating the way that I should, whole foods, prioritizing protein, and getting good sleep, and proper programming and working with a coach that knows what they're doing, me, I could do that for you, is going to, the end physique goal is going to happen. And the changes that are going to be made are coming from that constant and consistent checking of the small boxes week over week over week. And that is where I just, it just, I've fallen into that trap. So I don't try to steer people away from ever weighing themselves. It is a good metric and a good tool that we can use, but being hung up about the number and stepping over, and it's not even, and I'll even go to the point of just say neglecting the fact that the things that actually matter in life and in your human body that you have, they get, they just get thrown by the wayside. And it just tears me up when that happens, when people come to me and they're so bound up about, what, I don't think what we're doing is working, or how do I know if it's actually working, or how long will it take? That is a question that if I had the answer to, I wouldn't be talking to you. I probably would, because I enjoy doing this and I enjoy talking about it, but I would be doing it with a beach setting behind me in my large condo somewhere where it's warm all year round, because I just don't have that answer, and I would get paid millions to have it. But all right, that was a long rant. I apologize. But nonetheless, performance over scale weight, performance improvements over scale weight every day, 10 out of 10, 100 times out of 100. That's what I'm going for. That's what I'm looking for. This is this ties perfectly into the body image distortion that happens when you have a large goal, whether it be a weight goal, physique goal, a look, whatever it may be. That the human perception, the self perception of the way that the body looks is incredible. A little story about me. At one point in time, I had my own body image issues. I mean, I was recently retired from NASCAR pit crew. I, for the life of me, was an athlete, and I no longer had that. I had injuries. I had things that come up that I just could not. I could no longer perform and be in that role. So that all got taken away rather quickly. I was probably the strongest to date that I had ever been. I was in athletic shape, but I was always a big kid. I was a big guy. I was, I carried tires for a NASCAR pit crew at probably 220, 225 at the heaviest. But whenever that went away and injury crept in, I still ate and tried to train like I was an athlete, but I was doing with limitations. So I eventually got to a peak weight of 255 pounds. Now, 255-pound Cody was not a very good lift. He was just unhappy. Again, that body image, that distortion of the way that I perceived myself was I was overweight. I couldn't move. I wasn't an athlete anymore. So what's the point, right? I was having fun. I was going out. I was doing all the stuff. Until one day something happened, and that could be a whole different podcast in and of itself of how it all happened, how it all transpired. I may do that one day of like what is my actual, what was my journey, how did I get to where I am now. But fast forward, a lot of things happened. I put my foot down, and I got down to 165 pounds. So right at about 100 pounds of weight loss. I say weight loss because it was that's all it was. It was weight. It was not body fat. Yes, body fat was there. It was body fat, but it was muscle. It was everything involved. 165-pound Cody had a different set of body image issues. That 165-pound Cody thought he was still 255-pound Cody. He looked in the mirror and he saw 255. He saw the number on the scale. He saw the rolls on his stomach. He saw his face and his chin, and that never went away. Even though I was 100 pounds lighter, I still was starving myself, running 8 to 10 miles a day, and thinking that I was achieving what I wanted out of the scale going down continually. That was the complete and utter opposite of what actually happened, because when I finally was able to return to the gym post injury, post recovery, and I went to go lift weights, I was I was dramatically weaker than where I thought I was, or what I previously could do. And that hit me hard because I'd always been a strong, the big, strong, athletic guy, and then that would kind of open my eyes when I could barely press the 65, 70-pound dumbbells. And that's all arbitrary because that's just to me individually, but like I could barely do it. So then I had a real deep look into myself and, some comparison, which again, comparison can be the thief of joy, but it also can be the eye opener that you need to shift gears and move into another direction. I took a couple pictures of myself and I looked and I was like, I'm skin and bones. So now fast forward, shifting gears a little bit, and gears shifted. I kind of transitioned to what I was doing, fitness wise, workout wise, nutrition wise, and lo and behold, not only did my body start to take shape as I shifted those goals, it was just time over time over time, but my mental health started to get a whole lot better in regards to my perception of self, my perception of others, my mindset, my viewpoints on things started to become a little more clear as opposed to jaded based off of what my day was going to look like if the scale was 1 pound heavier than it once was, or it did not go down at all. It was a clear mindset. It was I'm going to be able to eat this food, I'm going to be able to train my body, and I'm going to feel good about it because I know what is happening is what I ultimately wanted to happen. So, and it wasn't a flip of the fingers. It wasn't a week process. It was months and even into years of building up to a comfortable point now of 200-pound Cody that is happy, healthy, mentally clear, strong, can still move relatively good. I'm not going to say I'm the most athletic shape right now, but, comes in ebbs and flows. It's the same person, completely different mindset, completely different viewpoints when it comes to body weight, performance, food, life. It's a very interesting thing. We can do a full topic on that. That would be a good one. I may bring somebody else on that's had a dramatic that I'm thinking of that's also had a dramatic weight loss and weight loss story, but also now at finding that homeostasis medium point of happy now where they're at. Final point, which I hit on a little bit kind of throughout this entire thing, is short-term versus long-term gratification. If this is going to be a long-term endeavor, a long-term journey that you like to do, I like to call it that, a journey. If this is going to be a long-term thing, then the viewpoint must come from that same place as well. You can't have I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, but have a short-term gratification ticker every week, every day, every month, happen to like scratch and claw and like, I gotta have this, gotta have this, gotta have this. You got to be able to put some of that short-term gratification away and view it from the 30,000-foot view of what I'm doing now is going to benefit me a month from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, when you can look back on and see that progression of week over week over week, that ultimately again lead up to that big grandiose end goal. And when you can do that, you have made it. You've made that switch. It is now a lifestyle change. It's not just a quick in and out. I go to burn boot camp for 45 minutes 3 times a week and I do it for 2 weeks and I get hurt or it's not working, so I quit and I go to the next thing. It's day in and day out, that long-term viewpoint of I am going to do this because I feel good. I know that this is working. It's maybe working slower than I expected because slow progress is still progress. You have to remember that. The small progress is still progress. It doesn't have to be that big home run every time. Bring a baseball term into it. We don't have to hit home runs every day, every week. What we do have to do is we've got to take a walk, we've got to bunt, and we've got to hit singles. We do have to do that every day, every week. But if you hit enough singles, you bunt the runner over, you take a walk, you take a hit by a pitch, you do enough of those, and ultimately, you're going to score runs. And then, when the time is right, stars align, thank God for whatever it may be, you hit a home run. Boom. And then that's what can, and that right there is how that cycle can work. Yes, there are down and there's low points. You may not get a hit for, you know, 2 games. You may not get a team hit for 2 innings, whatever it may be. But being able to view it again from that long-term perspective of this is a long game. This isn't a 1 inning and we're done. This is a 9 inning game. This is a forever thing. We're going to pull ourselves out of that hole of disparity and be like, I've got to do this now. I've got to lose 25 pounds in 2 months and I've got to X, Y, and Z. Nope. You don't have to do anything. You want to, but the biggest point is you get to. You get to go to the gym. You get to work out. You get to choose what you eat. You get what you put in. You get what you put in because you get to go to the gym. You get to work out and you get to choose what goes in your mouth nutrition wise. Let that sink in for a second. There is no one telling you There is no one forcing you. There is no one making you. It's all a you decision. It is a self-made decision that you get to do all of those things because you ultimately want that big goal at the end. So when it comes down to it, even though if you hire a coach, you hire a trainer, yeah. And I tell my clients this all the time. I want you to. I want you to. I don't need you to, but I want you to be so far invested that it is a daily thing that you're constantly just thinking about it because you're gonna that progress continues. And I as a coach cannot want your goal more than you do. As much as I do, and as much as I care, and as much time and effort and energy that I put into my training sessions, my clients, their mental health, their physical health, their well-being, their daily activities, the time in the gym, I cannot want their end goal for them more than they do because I cannot make them. I can facilitate them and I can help them, but whenever the rubber meets the road, it comes down to you making the decision that you want to change. So, with that, I'm going to just to wrap it all up here, kind of rapid fire. Most people miss the progress because they focus on the dramatic changes. They step over the small wins and they don't allow those small wins to play out into the much bigger, larger goals over time. Unrealistic expectations that either do or don't come from social media will derail you as quick as anything. When you're aiming for and tied to the number on a scale as opposed to your performance improvements, that will again derail you as quick as you can. Aim for those performance improvements, that small progress over time. The saying that I say again, I'll say it again: take what is given and make the most. The body image distortions that happen. Don't be jaded by what the scale says, and don't let the scale tell you what the mirror and the eyes see. And the eyes can distort what the perception may be just because of the number or the way that you're feeling that day, or numerous different factors. So being able to be self-aware enough and knowing that you're getting stronger, you're feeling better, you're not in pain, that should be able to push some of that viewpoint, that perception, and that tie to the scale away. And then lastly, um, short-term versus long-term gratification, being able to view it, have a viewpoint from the long-term view, the 30,000-foot view of this is a long game. It's not a short game. It's not a quick hit, quick in and out. If that's what you're thinking it's going to be, it's going to be I'm going to get in, I'm going to get what I want, and I get out. You're going to get in, not get what you want, and you're going to get out. So remember that most people quit before the results become noticeable, and slow progress is still progress. Small wins are still small wins. So with that, I wanted to thank you all for listening. I appreciate every single one of you taking the time to listen and support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, leave a like, review, comment. I'd love to know what topics you'd like to hear next. If you're interested in working with me for coaching, programming, or mentorship, there'll be a link in the description, or you can email me directly at haveadayfitness@gmail.com. Thank you guys. Hold the standard, be a cut above, and have a day.